Welcome. Hello, hello, hello. This is G. This is all astrology. I am starting a little bit early because I want to pull up the chart for the full moon that's coming. We did spend a little bit of time on it last week. We have a full moon for the month of October. It's on October 9th. So, cursor top right hand corner. This, you see the date go to the left? Yeah, October full moon, October 9th, 2022. Full moon happens right around 4 o'clock. It's Central Daylight Time, so adjust for the time zone that you're in. So what I'm going to do differently, a little bit differently, is break just the basic meaning of a full moon down. Okay, so normally when we have a full moon, you have you experience an intensification of emotions, right? The moon is yeah, emotions and feelings. So if it's emotions and feelings, as that moon gets bigger, right? When you look out at the sky, right, and you see sometimes it's really thin, it's just a small sliver, and other times it gets a little bit bigger. And then when it's full moon time, you see it's a big ball in the sky. And if you pay attention to yourself, to your own emotions and feelings, or if there's maybe a discussion or just an event, something happens and it you have like this strong emotional response to it, right? Typically, if you just pay attention to when the full moons occur, you may notice within yourself that intensification or that buildup of emotions. Okay, so for certain individuals, if they have, if you've got your own chart at home, right? And if you're playing along or watching or following along, and if you don't have your chart and if you want it, just get your birth digits to me right under the live and the details. You can send your stuff privately if you like to the email account, allastrology@gmail.com. Okay. Everybody can get a chart. That's not a big deal. There's no cost involved with that. That's just part of just part of the service of All Astrology to its subscribers. So finding out, what you have at what degree matters, right? And so intensification of emotion, possibly things about freedom and yourself, your ability, right? Your ability to do what you want when you want to do it. So maybe hurts and wounds that have to do with your physical body. And I say physical body because it's a full moon in the sign of Aries, right? So here's my cursor, top right hand corner. We're going to go down to the Aryan energy. And this right here is the sign of Aries. Okay, you see that? I'm kind of running a little circle around the sign of Aries. And look for the moon. And there's the moon. It just lit up in blue. So there's the moon, and it says it's at 16 degrees and 32 minutes, right? So this is how I know. I'm just dissecting it, right? The moon, emotions, feelings, family, possibly strong feminine energy, because it's the moon, it's feminine. We think of childhood, things from childhood. Maybe something occurred from childhood, something that likely, if there's an emotional wound of some sort, likely it's some sort of a scarring, something that happened to the body, even possibly even the head, because Aryan energy is really it's the full body, but it's the head, because think about the ram. The ram tilts its head down and charges forward, right? It doesn't look, it doesn't think, it just rams forward, right? And so Mars is the ruler of this full moon. Mars dominates the entire month of October. And Mars started to be a dominating factor actually like the third week in August, because Mars went into the sign of Gemini. But then as August started to get near the end of August and then September, we had Mars, in the sign of Gemini being very impulsive. And so communications beginning, you see Mars over here, right? Mars at 2246 at this full moon. But in the sign of Gemini, it's talking and relating and communicating. And the sign of Gemini represents coworkers and siblings. This is people who are neighbors, next door neighbors. And oh my gosh, do I have next door neighbor stories that started like on like on that date, August 20th. I was in here recording a video, and I had somebody like banging down the front door while I was in the middle of literally of a video. And so I could hear the person banging, and it was a nice day. We had the windows open. And so I was just kind of hoping the person would realize that, whoever was in the house couldn't come to the door because I was in the middle of recording a video, right? And the person never left. They kept banging on the door, and then they started yelling through the door, like, "Hello!" And I'm like, "Really? Like, is there an emergency?" So anyway, that's that. That is an assertive communicator, an assertive neighbor. This person was an assertive neighbor, and they were not going to take a come back later or I'm not available answer. Like they just weren't doing it. So think about that when we think about a full moon in Aries, because Mars rules so much at this time. Okay. Now, Aryan energy, the head, we already discussed all that. 1632. What we didn't discuss is I mentioned Mars being assertive, but what about its impulsivity, right? It doesn't think, so it can just like not even look around. It acts before it thinks. It acts before it considers others, because Aries energy, Mars is the ruler of Aries, right? I keep saying this because I can say it 1,000 times and sometimes it just doesn't sink in, right? It's assertive, and so it may just charge, but it goes really fast. Yeah, it wants to be first. So it's almost like it's in a race. Yeah, like it's freaking in a race. And so it feels like either it has to be out front, so sometimes we call Mars the Marine because Mars is also known to carry a knife and weapons. Right, right, right. And boy, there's been a lot happening in my neck of the woods. I don't know about where you guys are, but this is even before the full moon. I've got crazy stories. Nothing happened to me personally, but pretty close in the neighborhood. And so it's just like, what the hell? So there's things that had to do with automobiles because that's Gemini energy, right? Merchants, people being at the store or at the market, and like Mars, assertive Mars energy showing up with a weapon, right? I wasn't there, but this happened not too far. Just crazy stuff in the neighborhood too, like with, auto thefts and a gun going off and shooting at somebody. Like I wasn't present for any of these things, but couple of streets, a couple blocks away, it's too close for comfort for me, right? So I'm just bringing all those little side stories into it so that we can see and understand how Mars and where Mars is, the sign that it's in, how it can possibly also affect how this full moon energy expresses, right? So full moon at 16, that means the sun is at 16, same degrees. That's what makes a full moon, when the sun and the moon are exactly opposite of each other. That's how you get a full moon. So what else do you see here? I know we talked about this at last week's live. We got vertex. Like at the time of this full moon, we have vertex there at 1851. Interesting. Vertex is literally like something almost faded, something that occurs. It's like an event or a person, right, that shows up. Something changes, and it's new because it's Aries energy, and Aries likes new stuff. And right, it's vertex in Aries. It wants new, it wants exciting, it wants independence and freedom of my body. So I have to say it like that, body autonomy, because it's the moon, feminine. A woman's right to do what she wants with her body has been kind of it's absolutely been in the crosshairs. Look at all this Chiron. This is huge. If Chiron is here, it's conjunct this full moon. We know Chiron represents wounds. So it's Chiron and Aries, wounds of my body, wounds about my body. Yeah, absolutely. Chiron's at 14 degrees. The full moon is at 1632. So it's all conjunct. It's all conjunct, right? So something about our body, but it's a release. Yeah, a release. And if it's in the sign of Aries, and Aries represents my freedoms, but also the actions of my body, the actions we get to take with our body, right? The actions that we choose to take or not to take. Yeah. So do you know where 16 degrees and 32 minutes of Aries is in your chart. That's going to be a big factor. So the chart we have right now on the screen, all right, we'll pretend this is, someone's chart. This means they would have their full moon in their 6th house. So the way we would read this is there's a release. It has something to do with the body and the freedoms of my body. Something about a pain, right? Could be something that has to do from the past in my childhood. Could have to do with the public as well in general, because it's the moon. The moon is my family, but our greater family is the public. So feminine energy and the public, females, right? And then the 6th house, we have to weave that in. 6th house is what? The care of my body, the health care of my body. Yes, the health care of my body, the routines of my body, even the work that I do, right? How do you use your body? Do you work in an industry that requires your body to, to be moving about? And are you functioning? Are you standing? What's the other job where the people can sit and they just either at a desk, whether it's clerical work or whatever, I forget the term for that. But if you don't have a job like that, it could be that, because it's in the 6th house of work, right? The job, health routines, health habits. This can also be pets. I know we mentioned that earlier, Daphne, talking about the Gemini energy and the experience that you had shared with me. So yeah, some sort of a release. So for this person, we'll just say we'll call this person, I don't know, give me a name. We'll call this person Score, because it's Scorpio on the ascendant, right? So Score's chart may be simply releasing a health routine. Yeah, it could be as simple as that. Now, if they have something there, that would color it. That would add another layer of meaning, like if there was a planet there, right? So that somebody could have a Mars there, someone could have a black moon Lilith, someone could have their own moon there, which would make it a very big release if it was a moon on a moon. But it could even be something, because we have to remember that the moon is mom, right? And so there can be mother wounds. Yeah. So for some people, when I say mother wound, it's my ability to be a mom, my ability to not be a mom. So either I chose to not be a mom or I can't be a mom, right? For those women who want to have a baby but just don't have the equipment that works in the way that's required for a baby to be made, right? And then for those women who do have that, but yet they don't want it. I mean, that's a real thing, right? So there's all sorts of pains associated with that. But what about the pain of me being a child, but yet feeling like I was independent, feeling like maybe my mom wasn't really there? Wasn't, because the moon is about nurturing and feelings and emotion and empathy. And so even if you have a mom in your life, if she's not present like that, because I can give an example, like when I was growing up, my mom had a buttload of babies. I mean, a lot, right? There were 12 kids, 12 children. So I don't ever recall my mother being the person who was very, I wouldn't describe her as warm and nurturing. She, having 12 children, you kind of got to be the one who, yeah, if you don't have a backbone, if you can't, you kind of got to be willing to stand independently and show the little army that you had that it doesn't matter how big they get, that they have to listen to their mom, right? So whatever and however that all came about, because I know in her own upbringing, she was brought up during a time where I think she was born in 37, I want to say. No, 39. I'm thinking of my dad. 39. And so that was a time where, well, anybody listening would know, when you were born at that time, it was just different generations, and the world was very different. And when a parent said to do something, it was done. Like there was none of this other stuff. We didn't have options. We didn't have many options, So for my mother having a family, it was really more for her, only because I've looked at her chart. I've cheated, which gave me a lot of understanding as her child. It was really more about being surrounded by people and being in a group. It wasn't so much about connecting deeply with the individuals in that group. Right. Connecting deeply with individuals. Yeah, that's definitely not an Aquarius thing. That was my mother, an Aquarius birthday. Yes. So she felt more distant. But to her credit, when we were small, my mother was in that kitchen every single day cooking. There was always food on the table. I mean, of course, the family went through very, very hard times, and there were times where the cabinets were bare, and that was very different. But my mom had to be out of the house working, so that was totally different. But she did it. She got out of the house and she worked. I mean, my dad was there too, of course. She wasn't doing it alone. And so when we think back on our childhoods, it's like, so what were the pains of being a child? What were the wounds? Because it doesn't have to be wounds to the body physically. Because even if it is, those wounds leave emotional scarring, right? We energetically we just have these wounds, and sometimes we don't recall that stuff. It's too hard to take with us. So this release, because it's a full moon, that's what full moons are. They're all about a release. It's about a let go. But normally you can't release something. You can't release a hurt. You can't release a wound unless you know it exists. You have to be aware of it. So like if you don't recall it and you're not aware of it, then what happens? We end up kind of reliving that pain when we have conversations with other people or events happen. We have experiences. We talk or something occurs and we feel like this pain, but we don't know where the hell it's coming from. We just know how intense and strong it is because it's Mars. Yeah, Mars is intense and strong and can be very immature because it's all about me, me, me. It's the ego. So yeah, it's like about, well, what about me? So I have to also include in this, there could be some freedoms, but it could be possibly, it really comes down to the location of that energy. Like, where does that full moon happen in your sixth house? So for this person, for Scar, however I named this person, for their chart, there could be some routines at their job. Like they had some tasks that they did where they were solo, they were independent, and those tasks may be ending. Yeah. Now, I don't know what kind of a job they have, but yeah, when we think about Aries energy, it's a fighter energy. Yeah. It could be like a race car driver. It's someone who wants to be first. So someone who athletic, very physical, athletic energy. This could be a lot of different things for somebody and how they use that as far as an income, like for a job. But it also could just be like, maybe they work out every day, right? Maybe they used to go running, right? Maybe they used to lift whatever, I don't know, all the terms for weightlifting and all that crap, but maybe they used to do those kind of things solo. And maybe they've decided, I kind of want to have a partner when I do this. Or maybe they're just ending whatever that was, right? And they're picking up a new routine. Yeah, it could be something as simple as that. However, let's look at the Venus over here at 13 degrees and the sun at 16 in Libra. So this is about things being fair and balanced. So when there's all this constant independence, it's opposite of the balance. And if Venus is here, it's almost as though, right, because it's Venus in Libra, there's a new value because it's really close to the sun. You see that? And it's on relationships. See Libra? Yeah. It's in Libra. So that's significant one-on-one relationships. So for somebody who was working out alone, this could be something as simple as their partner is like, hey, I kind of want to start working out. What do you think about if we work out together? Like if we go to the gym together, right? It might be something like that. But look at Mercury at 28 degrees. Hold on. I got this crazy cough. So Mercury, the retrograde is over, right? Which also for everybody, the Mercury retrograde literally ends in like 6 hours. Yeah, I know I'm crazy. So at like 4 a.m. Central Daylight Time, the Mercury retrograde is over. But it is still in its shadow zone. So keep that in mind. Mercury, which is news, information, it's the technology. It's, anything you're doing online, your devices, Mercury, sales. In Virgo, healthcare. I had one of the people who come up to the star room, Cassie, and she was under a video today, or maybe it was the other day, she was talking about some of the crazy stuff because she's a nurse. And so healthcare, nursing, think about what nurses do, right? Yes, they're there giving the medicine, but there's a big part of their job that also kind of entails some of the things you might do in your home, some of the smaller things that they might not get acknowledged and recognized for, right? And that's part of it, right? So, like, yeah, think about that. If you're ever in a hospital, how many times did you have a good nurse? So what would you consider a good nurse, right? Yeah, because you want somebody who's not just there to give you the medicine. You want someone who's going to walk in the room and you know be at least kind and polite and a little sociable, right? Somebody who is willing to possibly listen to what you have to say, and kind of have maybe possibly a nice rapport, a nice good banter back and forth, someone you get along with. That's important. Yeah, especially if it's your nurse, like you're in bed sick. Yeah, you're kind of vulnerable at that point. Yeah. So it's kind of like, when a domestic thing, like in the home, right? These are people that you're laying down, they're around you all the time. If you're ill or just whatever, eating, right? That's important. Preparing food. Yes. A lot of this stuff happens when we're in the hospital, right? So Mercury at 28, near the critical 29-degree marks, we could hear something that has to do with healthcare. I think I saw something the other day about where was that? Um, Maybe somebody could remind me. If you guys saw it, there was like a whole bunch of nurses that were just like, I don't know, quitting or something. I can't remember where it was. I didn't watch the video. I just read the headlines. And it's not that they're always true, but I just find it interesting because I see how it ties in with the astrology. So Pluto's retrograde is also over at this time. And what you see here is a few days, well, actually like 2 days before, Mercury would have been trining Pluto. I mean, it still is here, but Pluto's at 26, Mercury is at 2841 already. So expect like October 7th, October 8th. Yeah, Mercury and Pluto trining. So if it's Pluto in Capricorn, that's powerful people, government, right? Something big that has to do with healthcare. And I think I heard something from the current administration about healthcare. I'm not really, I have to be honest with you. I've been so behind in my work. I don't even know what the heck it was about, but yeah, I haven't been able to keep on top of all that. One thing I'm going to add before I close this out is look at Saturn at 18. The sun is going to be trining Saturn. You see that? So yeah, when I was talking about government, people in power, trining with that Mercury energy, Saturn is also going to be trining the sun in Libra, which also speaks to possibly legislation. Saturn, someone who's in charge. Yes. So there might be something there that works with this, that lines up with what I was talking about in the administration, and something with healthcare and trying to probably affordable healthcare, more affordable than it already was or is. Because for some of us, healthcare is still pretty unaffordable. Like I have healthcare through Medicare, but for the plan that I have, because of the plan that I selected, I wanted to have a choice in my doctors. Well, with that plan, yeah, I don't have vision, I don't have dental, and I totally really need dental, and anyhow, it's just like, yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy. So, and we're the USA. Anyway, see Mars at 22 in Gemini. It is trining Vulcan at 2238. Yes. So Mars actions with our body, but it's in Gemini. So it's also information. Yeah. Information and news. But whatever that information and news is, likely things are going to be occurring. We're not just thinking about stuff, we're doing it. We're having serious conversations about things. It's conversations that will include things about, let's make this happen. We're now making this plan and we're going to make this happen. So there's a lot of supportive energy in air, as you see, for things to actually occur. When we talk about the government and we talk about legislation, there's a lot of support for that. And again, because it's a full moon in Aries, and a moon can represent mom and females, and then we've got Chiron right there. Yeah, it makes me kind of wonder, because you know, yeah, there are females who absolutely the right to have an abortion. Take religion and politics completely 100% out of the conversation, out of the equation. It doesn't belong there. It's a woman's body. It's her health care, right? That's between her and her doctor, So, yeah, Yeah, that's like telling a man he has to have a vasectomy or he can't have a vasectomy. Now, I get it. That might be quite different in some people's eyes, but it's just the principle of, well, why can't we tell men? Why can't we tell them what they can and can't do with their body? Like, would that be even okay? Would anybody even pretend to entertain that idea? Right? I mean, even for people who are like known rapists, like who are convicted rapists, is there legislation anywhere where it's like, okay, right, this person should probably have a vasectomy? Doesn't mean they'll never be able to rape again, but at least a child wouldn't be able to be reproduced over a violent, you know, angry, malicious act. I mean, that's just, yeah, that's wow. Anyway, I don't want to get too deep into that. I'm just kind of throwing ideas out there for us to, you know, see how this full moon in Aries next to Chiron can show up. So, there is a lot of support for sweeping changes, or at least the beginnings of those sweeping changes, whatever they may be. The real thing for you, right, in your own life is just to find out, where does the 1632 degrees happen in your chart at, and what house is it in? So remember, go by the degree, okay? A lot of folks get confused. It's the degree you want to look at, because you can have Aries energy in two houses, right? It can be in two houses. And so it gets confusing. Go by the degree, okay? So below the video, I'll have all the degrees for those of you who like to pay attention to the degrees in your chart. Again, if you don't know and you want to know, just comment below.